All right, and we are coming back live right now, and trying to pick up where I'm catching my breath from the last segment there. And Rocky, John...
we kept talking. We just kept going. We didn't even know we were muted. We were like, Scotty, you there?
Oh, I said we were going to break.
Yeah, well, we didn't realize that. We just carried on. So me and Rocky just carried on, really.
He usually has that.
Folks, I thought I'd upset you.
Yeah, he usually drops it. Folks, we'll be right back. You are listening to The Situation Room.
I said we got to go to break, and I just cut us. Bye. We're off to break.
I'd upset you.
I know. I'm working on my ins and outs, but my outs are going to break. Bye.
It was very impolite.
It was very impolite of me. And I did mute the broadcast, so you guys shouldn't have been heard. So, you know what? This whole technical thing, it just toasts me. I hate this. This server stuff, it's where we're broadcasting from. I don't even want to get into the technical stuff. I just want to tell you, sometimes the technical side of this show is as comical as, well, other parts of the show. There you go. It drives me absolutely insane. But there we go.
Have you finished your rant?
I have. Go ahead, John.
Excellent. Well, we were just...
Brother?
When you muted us, we were just saying that you should, look inward. Embrace.
Oh, I heard you say that.
Your heart. Oh, good. Well, there you go, then.
You actually said that before I said we're going to the break. You said that, and then I said, we're going to break. I said, that's wonderful, John. We're going to break.
And then Rocky blamed me for upsetting you.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Because I muted the broadcast.
But can I ask you? Can I just ask you to clarify? And I'm sure Rocky wants me to clarify this as well.
All right, go ahead. Clarify something for me, John.
No, I want you to clarify. I want you to clarify your last statement, because you started off with your wonderful analogy, which I must admit I used in the Exodus reality as well. Your opera house analogy.
Yes.
But then you went into consciousness, dimensional reality. I got a little bit lost, I will admit. I got a little bit lost. What were you referring to?
Oh, okay. Let me tell you this. When I've encountered a lot of people in the metaphysical world, the psychic world, the New Agers, if you will, God bless them. Pleiades bless them.
Yes.
You get a lot of information like this. They'll say, well, Spirit told me, and I just feel that you need to become one with... And I'm like, whoa. Stop. First of all, who's Spirit? Second of all, I said, how do you feel this? When you feel this, aren't you just telling me you're believing something by faith? Now, I'm not advocating becoming like Spock, and we must eradicate all emotion. But I am saying this, is how can you believe in something that is infinite? And I'm going to use Judeo-Christian terms because they're the easiest to latch onto this thought process here. How can you believe in something like that is all-powerful, all-knowing, all there, creator of the universe, the arbiter of judgment, and all of these things you want to throw in from different religions and so on. But yet there is no proof that any of that really exists.
Well, so you take it on faith. In a sense,
well, yeah, that's my point. You take it on faith. So what happens to the next guy's faith who believes in something different? Well, it's my cow. It's my cow that gives me that.
But you respect it. You see, the one thing I like about your analogy, and just to broaden that little analogy, is that when you were talking about perspectives and interpretations, I gather you were referring to supernatural, paranormal, ufology, and other such like things, and that within the audience you've got all these different positions, and they're all interpreting the play from their position. And you were then talking about filters and what their filters would be to interpret the play in which they're watching. And was that interpretation or that filter based upon one, their religion, two, their upbringing, of course, their status in the community, their work life, their married life, are they married? All of the cultural, social attributes that go with being a person, being a human being. Now, is also, then you were talking about the skeptics. So, is the interpretation or the perspective or the filter also based upon the person sat next to you in the audience?
Well, only if you ask them. If you nudge them and you go, hey, how's it look from over there?
Well, let's be honest. We know, and I'm not going to mention any names because I don't get involved. But there are skeptics out there. There are people out there who have nothing better to do than to just
rant and rave about people who think differently than they do.
But they never, ever discuss it with them. They do not communicate. They do not participate in discussion. They do not participate in debate.
I'm going to write this awful critique about somebody, but I'm not. But no. Listen, I'm going to write this. I'm using an example. I'm going to write this awful critique about you, John. John.
No, just
John. John, I can mute your mic from here, you know. I'm going to write this awful critique about John Ward and his gimp suityism. Now, I'm not going to. John Ward is available. I can email him. I can call him. I can talk to him on the phone. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want any conversation I have with John Ward about his gimp suit to color my judgment when it comes to being practical and informed.
But it also then would interfere with their own film. I'm being the person who sits on the fence here. You see?
Yes, Jack, you are.
So if you
go ahead.
You asked the question, if you did communicate, it would distort. It would
their
distort
perception,
your own filter and perception interpretation of the play. So therefore, to a certain extent, one has to remain seated. One has to remain anonymous to a certain point within the audience. Not participate within the audience, but participate by observing the audience and observing the play at the same time. And what I mean by that is observing the reactions of the audience, thereby garnering information that would then lead to enhance or maybe allow them to increase their perception and their interpretation of the play.
So you're saying I could be sitting there and let's say the character on stage is supposed to be God. And I'm looking and I go, wow, God looks great in a long white robe and a white beard. And during the intermission, I tap the guy in the seat in front of me and go, hey, what'd you think of that depiction of God? And he turns to you and he says, oh, I think that cow is looking very well and healthy. You know, so his perception would be very different. So you don't want to cross those lines and find out what you saw a cow up there. I saw a guy with a beard.
What would you do with that information then? What filter then would you use to actually interpret what he's saying? If he said he saw a cow and you're seeing a man in a white robe, who's right and who's wrong?
Well, that's my point. Who's right and who's wrong if the perception is different?
There is no right or wrong.
So the real answer is to be part of the play and not part of the audience.
Exactly. And that's what life is. Life is part of the play. Life is not being anonymous and sitting in the audience and not participating. Life is about participation. As I keep on saying, and I will continue to say until it's driven home by the cow itself, one has to participate. One has to break down the boundaries. One has to build bridges between one's fellow man, regardless of his religion, regardless of his or her background, regardless of his or her teachings, regardless of his or her gender or sexual orientation. One has to participate. And it is only through participation that we will learn and become better people and better equipped to deal with such experiences as paranormal,
but
ufology,
can we participate with the play when it is ethereal? How do we, as finite beings, touch the infinite? How do we cross that diaphanous veil that's there?
We are infinite. We are divine.
That's a perception. That is a perception, isn't it?
Perception. It's not a perception as far as I am concerned. It is a perception when you listen to me and your interpretation of my words is, John, that's a perception. You're allowed to have that. But for me, from where I'm sitting, I wish to participate. I'm up on that stage. I'm participating, and everybody around me is in the God suit. Be that a cow, be that a Krishna, be that a man with a big flowing beard with a crook, be it whatever, a cloud, as the great Alan Partridge once said. Oh, I think God's a black cloud hanging in the sky with legs. Maybe it's God's. Maybe it's a man in a gimp suit with a gag ball. You know, it doesn't really matter what the interpretation or the perception is or what the image is. It's the participation. It's allowing that thought process to take place. And as I say, from my perspective and from my ceremonial practice and from where I stand right this present moment in my own personal life, I believe we're all divine. I believe we all have a part to play. It's just if we wake up and realize that we are, and we do have a responsibility. There's that word again, responsibility.
And there's that phrase, wake up.
Responsibility to our fellow mankind, to communicate, to discuss, to debate, to talk. And if we're all quiet and we don't do this, then what's the point? If we continue arguing like they are in Syria and Iraq, if they continue arguing like they are in Sierra Leone, Boko Haram, El Shabaab, God, the list is endless at this present moment of extremists that are out there. But then again, so are the banksters, as some would have it, the one percenters. You know,
sure.
Congress,
well, how do they
Senate,
affect
Obama,
yeah,
Democrats? You know, the list is endless of our problems. But that's the beauty of it all. Because if we were all the same, it would be so boring. It wouldn't be utopia, as some people try to proclaim. It wouldn't be utopia. It would be hell on earth.
I actually don't think we can exist in utopia. I really don't.
No, we can't.
You know, and you see it right now in politics in America. You know, Obama's got a big speech tonight that more than half the nation thinks he's a lying sack of doo-doo. And the other, based on other things he said about the very same topic. And you're going to have a big polarized nation tonight. So what's going to happen with that? One half of the country or more is going to say, how can we follow a guy that keeps lying to us? The other half is going to say, I was just going to give my perception of it, put on blinders and say, well, I still support him. But the other half is going to believe him. They're going to believe him, the other half.
That's his job. He was elected by only half the population. That's being a politician. If you are an elected official, you haven't been elected, unless you've been elected by 100%, which never happens, you will have your followers and you will have your dissenters. That's politics. Rocky, what do you have to say? You're very quiet over there.
I'm actually, I'm really enjoying this conversation, but if you want to compare the two between politics and religion, the people that will support Obama are the people that will, it's just like a belief. If somebody has the same belief as you, you're on the same team. If you have an opposite belief, you're on a different team. So tonight, in fact, Scotty, I watched that video that you shared earlier, and it's amazing how many speeches he's done to where, he's talking about democracy.
Well, and all of those speeches had to do, there's 25 examples, not all in that little clip, but 25 examples that show where he repeatedly says, for me to act with an executive order to do something that Congress is supposed to be doing about immigration would be unconstitutional. He said democracy doesn't work that way. He says democracy means Congress has to come together. He said the task is on me to convince minds. But now he's gotten to the place where he's totally changed all that. He said, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do because you guys aren't going to agree on it. That just flies in the face of... Well, the point of being the president, yeah. Well, the thing is, he called it unconstitutional all the way up to the door.
But that's why you have a president.
That's why we have checks and balances. That's why we have a Congress that's supposed to be able to check and balance that. Now, I'm expressing too much opinion on that. I didn't want to get into political opinion as much. It's very difficult for me to talk about the Obama administration and not be political, wax political. Because my personal impression is I don't trust him, I don't believe him, I think he's a liar. And I've thought that almost since day one.
Let's get back to the spiritual.
So, let's move it back to spiritual.
Hang on, no, I'm going to put this into context. Do you believe that Jesus Christ, the Savior, loves you?
I don't know.
Do you believe, and I don't want to hear faith here, I'm using this in context with what you were saying about Obama.
Do I believe that?
Do you believe that? You believe that Obama is a liar?
Yes.
Conversely, do you believe that Jesus Christ loves you?
I don't know anymore. Because I have too many hands. There's too many hands in the pie. Well, the answer is I don't know. So I would have to say. So if I were to strip off all the BS, I would say no, because I don't know if I can. If I can't believe it wholeheartedly, I don't believe it.
You see, the problem with spirituality or religion, not spirituality, because spirituality is a different thing, but religion, mainstream religions, is that it centers around a persona. For the religion to work, you have to have 100% belief, not faith, belief that that person existed. You have to have 100% belief that that person's word is law. And what he said or she said is the truth. And it was said. When it was said, it was said. That's religion.
Well, then there is that.
Allows for questioning. Spirituality allows for exploration, investigation, free will. And so therefore, to go back to your original comment, Scotty, where, you were wondering about hell and damnation for infinity, I find it ludicrous, like you do, that if the Creator, be him or her, whoever it may be, would allow its creation to be damned in such an infernal place for infinity is again absurd. If that creation turns around and says, please forgive me, he then gives it a free pass and it can enter into the gates of heaven.
Yeah.
Where does one then draw from that the motivation, the enthusiasm for life? For me personally, as many of the audience know, and as you know, Scotty and Rocky, I was a very high Christian. Not as high as you, Scotty, but I was a high Christian. I went to church every Sunday. I created the youth club. I did everything for the church. And then I lost my faith. And I look back at those days and I think to myself, what was it that was my motivation? What was it that infused me to go to church? What was it that I saw in the scripture when I stood up and sung my heart out to the hymns and then stood up with the rest of the congregation to take communion? What was it that was driving me? I remember the feeling of togetherness. I remember the warm feeling of oneness. I remember sitting on the watch on the Easter Sunday, where you do the vigil until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I forget what time it was. And I used to sit there in the cloister in pitch black in the freezing cold, looking at a candle burning, but feeling the entire warmth from that candle beating in my heart. And I can remember reading the verse in scripture while looking at that candle and feeling the warmth from it. And it was just that single candle in that freezing cold church that just emanated and warmed the entire church, and that metaphorically speaking, spiritually speaking, religiously speaking. But I cannot quantify today what it was that drove me. I just can't pinpoint it. And I think I've become cynical, maybe even skeptical of what it was that I had back then compared to today. And here I am at Silsila, and I'm surrounded by religious artifacts. I'm surrounded by incantational forms and scripture. I'm surrounded by 3,000 to 5,000 years worth of mankind's history staring me in the face as I speak right now to you. And yet I think of the Bible. I think of the mainstream religions. I'm surrounded by my dear friends here. All of them are Muslim, and avid Muslims, avid believers. I'm in a country that is driven by Islam and Coptics, and they are so strong in their faith, and their belief is unshakable. And yet I can't grasp it anymore, and I can't quantify it anymore.
Well, that unshakable faith. We talked about that a little bit on Sunday when we talked to, when I had the talk with Ahmed, your inspector on the boat, when we had talks with Malman Saad at the coffee shop last year. All of those things, their belief in something that they adhere to, not belief, the things they know academically, sometimes fly in the face of what they know faith-wise. And I asked them how they reconcile that. Your friend who owns the restaurant, Nasser.
Yes.
All of these guys are guys I talk to, and I ask them the same question. What do you do when your knowledge of something flies in the face of your belief in something? And they all kind of they put up their hands. There's a you know what the gesture is. There's that gesture where the hands kind of go up a little bit and the head tilts to the side and the shoulders shrug. And it's kind of like, well, that is what the Quran says. And we get the same thing in Christianity. We get the same thing everywhere. People don't like to have their beliefs challenged. And I think the person that you find having the most struggle, at least philosophically or mentally or emotionally in life, is the person who says, my faith says this, the thing that I have chosen to believe, and yet my knowledge tells me that it's different. And those are the people that are conflicted, and reconciling those two things is the course that many people are on. And again, it's like, and I've used him many times, Feynman, astrophysicist, contemporary of Einstein and Oppenheimer, and he said, there's a lot of things I believe, a lot of things I don't believe. He says, but I don't want to believe something my whole life and come to the end and find out I believe the wrong thing the whole time. And he says, so I'm very comfortable not believing anything.
But to use that metaphorical, are the people who have this strong faith and this strong belief, are they part of the audience? Are they participating in the play?
That's the question. And how do you participate in the play? Is that the waking up we've talked about? And what we're going to do is we're going to go out to break, and we'll be back in about 5 or 6 minutes here. So get your thinking caps on. John, Rocky, keep your thinking caps on, and we're gonna tackle this issue. Be right back.
Had Albert Einstein ever been deserted on a tropical island? And had he ever whacked the professor and taken ginger for his very own? Their offspring most certainly